Came back to China, a whole new world. To reconnect with myself, super boring. I get a free DD ride. Whew, it was revolutionary. That's just dangerous. Hey, video games is so interesting, so immersive.
Welcome to the next episode in China Between Meetings with Eric Liu,
Hello.
co-founder, CTO of DIGITWIN. Thank you, Eric, for finding time for me.
Sure, anytime. Yeah, really excited to be here because thanks to you, I get a free DD ride.
Appreciate that.
No.
So the first question is, where did you grow up and where does your passion for technology come from?
Yeah. So I grew up, so I was actually born in Nanjing. Most people don't know that because of my American accent. And then I moved to the States when I was around 4 to 5. Grew up in Maryland, which is on the East Coast of the US, and then went to the University of Maryland College Park. Majored in computer science because I love technology and computers, and then moved to the West Coast, California, and then started doing the whole LA, San Diego, and then finally ending up in Silicon Valley.
Did you play games when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, I love games. I mean, that was one of the things because I was a single child. I really got into computers, right? My dad was, he also worked in computers back then. So, I would have this large personal computer, I think it was IBM or something, and I was playing these, games, right? Like pool, 2D pool, of course, back then. I was playing all sorts of these, these days, crappy games, but I loved it. I got so into it. I was so passionate about gaming. And then I started writing my own games in QBasic, and that's how I got into, even more into computers.
Wow, that's pretty cool. What was your first job?
Ooh, my first job out of college. So after graduating College Park, I moved to the West Coast because my parents were already there because of business. And I got a job at a company called Financial Freedom, which is actually a reverse mortgage company, which super boring. But it's interesting that I learned there because I was programming. Immediately after about 3 to 6 months, I don't recall exactly, I stopped programming. In other words, I realized that my not only passion but my strengths was in management, and then started getting promoted fairly quickly, and then went into project management, and then just started from there.
Are you programming now?
No.
So since you stopped,
Yeah.
you stopped.
I mean, other than hobby programming, right? At home, I would write some like AI, and like just for fun. I would do some hacking or whatever, right? That's just because it's my own hobbies. But these days, I don't actually program anymore. That's sort of a different role because there's different roles for CTOs, right? Some are more about sort of the technologist, futurist type of thing, trying to identify the key technologies and software for an organization. Others are, dig down into the code, right, and sort of lead through that. But luckily, I have a great team that actually does the programming. I just make sure that I lead them towards the right direction.
I know that you work at Nvidia, so can you tell me more a little bit about that time?
Yeah, so it's interesting because after having gigs at mortgage companies and real estate companies, data companies, I realized that this is not what I really wanted to do. And then I love gaming, of course, like you mentioned. Growing up, I was playing games, and I got a job at a game company. And at that time, it was actually, have you heard of Diablo?
Yep.
Yeah, so Diablo is from Blizzard North, originally from a team that that left Blizzard North, that is the creator of Diablo, and then created this studio called Flagship Studio. So I joined up with them. Got to know the whole team, and then we created a game called Hellgate London. We launched it worldwide, and then I went to South Korea and launched that as well. And we all know South Korea, esports was basically the foundation of esports at that time. So yeah, I mean that's what got me back into sort of the video game space, and then realized that hey, video games is so interesting, so immersive. Reason why I got so into it, and hundreds of millions of kids and adults worldwide are still playing. I still play games, mobile games these days when I have time, but it's such an interesting medium.
What other companies did you work before you moved to China?
So after our Haugi London game, it was revolutionary at that time because it was like Diablo but in 3D, and everything was randomized. Unfortunately, that didn't translate too well to 3D because 2.5D was actually a little bit easier to deal with. But anyway, long story short, after that was not as successful as we thought, I was the head of the publishing department for a South Korean game company. At that time, another game called Audition, which had 300 million worldwide users, which is astronomical, which is crazy, right? It's similar to DDR if you ever play that,
No.
but it's more like a keyboard type of dance game for kids. And then after that, I went to Nvidia. So everybody knows Nvidia these days. They're surprisingly worth more than Intel. Actually, I'm not surprised because I knew that they were going to do well for the future of sort of parallel processing versus a CPU, right? GPU is just so much more advanced for math and 3D objects. So I started doing a lot over there, sort of the product and content management for GeForce, and basically worked with a lot of video game companies worldwide. And then after that, I basically did hiatus. I traveled Europe at least, 10 countries in 2 months. Needed to sort of reconnect with myself, but at the same time, I was going to join a small company for 3D engine development, right? Because at that time, their technology was better than the large guys like we all know these days, like Unreal and Unity. Right? It was actually better technology, so I helped them expand worldwide.
And how is the company doing now?
It's same. After that, so what I did is that I actually worked with the founders and I actually brought that technology to China. And so back in 2015, that's when I, came back to China,
Yeah.
and saw a huge opportunity for this type of 3D real-time technology, right? And I started applying it to sort of the simulation space, which is, for example, flight simulators, right? So just like, when I saw that any type of business like Boeing or any government is using these flight simulators to train our pilots, it was the worst graphics I've ever seen. It was from the 80s days, right? So how can a human being be immersed in a flight simulator and then apply it to the real world? That's just dangerous, I think, right? So this is where the video game sort of visuals comes in, and you can actually, if it's a video game so immersive, why can't you apply it to the real world?
But what was the exact reason? Why did you move to China? What brought you here?
Yeah, so what brought me here was because I was already traveling back and forth from the US and China because I saw a lot of these opportunities. Actually, the opportunities were bigger here in China, and that's the key thing. Utilizing new technologies, it's not hard, but it's sort of, all of these other markets, whether it's Europe or North America, are already very stable. It's hard to sort of penetrate and innovate as quickly, right? I think that's pretty normal for any sort of, market. Just like with smart cities, that's something where in China, right, in 2017, over 50% of smart cities were being developed in China. And basically, only China and Saudi Arabia are the only two countries in the world that are starting cities from nothing, from basically dirt, right? And they pre-planned that, right? Every other country was very well developed. They're not going to say, I have this plot of land, let's do a new city and have everybody, right? And it's really interesting because in China, the migration of immigrants, right, to cities is actually a huge phenomenon. Because if you think about it, as these sort of third, fourth, fifth, sixth tier cities and people are sort of migrate, it becomes sort of a mass exodus because everybody's looking for a better career, right, more money. And as they sort of transition from, inside of China, right, to sort of the west, the East Coast and other cities, they create these hubs where it becomes sort of a living, breathing city, like a temporary city. So anyway, long story short, there's huge opportunities here in China, and applying my technologies was a great way to go.
DIGITWIN, is it another buzzword? Can you break it down and explain to the wider audience what DIGITWIN is?
Yeah, digital twins actually, I would say, I mean, it's just like any industry, right? The Gartner sort of curve of new innovations. Like VR many years ago, when I first got here in 2015, was a buzzword, right? But now it's sort of not dying down, but it has a resurgence, right? A resurgence, and digital twins is similar because it's so new. Even though, I mean, the term is newer for the masses, but it's been around since, early 2000 days, and basically the definition of a digital twin is basically a digital representation of a physical world object, thing, building, could be anything, right? And that sort of digital twin, it can be even human, right? We can even have a digital twin of a human. I mean, you're wearing an Apple Watch, right? You're getting sensor back information, your heartbeat. Eventually we're going to have more advanced sensors that can tell us all sorts of additional data. So a digital human is also a digital twin, right, of a physical object in the world.
What is business value of digital twin?
I think it's huge. It's basically something that it's untapped. Right, sort of like just like data, how I like to say that data is new oil, right, for artificial intelligence. Digital twins is an untapped resource as well. Whether it's applied to a smart building with all the sensors, the real-time sensors, or if it's applied to a smart human, right, or digital human, all sorts of these things. It's truly untapped. So we're sort of at the precipice, right, the early days of this applied technology outside of the science. And now we're starting to see a lot of companies sort of say, oh, I do digital twins. But the thing is, it's a lot of these other companies start from visualization, right? I mean, sure, I started as sort of visualization in Nvidia, but the thing is, I started very early on creating a digital base platform, right, to actually connect all this data, right, to actually work on all sorts of these, real-time sensors and camera feeds and everything. So if you can't support 300,000 video feeds of a city simultaneously, then get out of here.
What are the industries that are using now currently digital twins?
So digital twins, there's, I would say, two major industries, and those are the ones that we focus on, that are sort of the pioneers, right, and really are open to using this type of new technology. Manufacturing, right, which is huge, right? You can think of basically digital twin back in the early days was applied to assembly equipment, right? Because you can imagine that, hey, let's say I have this assembly line, and then you already have sensors. So once you have a sort of digital version of that, whether it's 2D or 3D, it doesn't matter, but you know exactly that it has a lot of these sensors on it, and you know sort of the status, right? The current status, as well as the historical status. So you can actually determine, you can predict almost, where it's going to head towards, right? Does it have a strange vibration where I see that it needs maintenance, et cetera, right? So you can sort of see how manufacturing, as well as sort of, we call it Industry 4.0, right, is sort of the huge push for digital twin technologies. And the other one is smart cities, because of networks, 5G, right? Because everything's connected these days, IoT, right? I mean, we're in your car right now, and there's tons of sensors. And in the very near future, right? This is no longer sci-fi, right? We all know that Tesla and autonomous driving and vehicles are the next big thing, right? And that's just one, I would say, system of a smart city mobility, right? I mean, I was just, over the past weekend, I don't know if you know this, but Tesla came out with FSD, which is full self-driving beta version 9 of their software. And for the first time ever, you can just let go and let the car drive you, and it makes decisions for you. It's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's not just on the highway anymore. It'll take you from your house to anywhere you want to go. Full self-driving, right? And there's a beta version. And all of the people that have been testing it, I've been floored, because it's literally it shows you what can be achieved now, and it's only using cameras too. It's not using radar or LiDAR. It doesn't need it, right? And that's the incredible thing, right? So anyway, yes.
And it will be available in China.
China, I'm not too sure. I'm sure that because China, the roads and it's not as I would say it's more randomized, right? Who knows if like 50 people just start walking on the street. But based off of the technology, it's definitely, I'm seeing that they are doing a lot of testing in China. That's the thing, right? It's a Trojan horse approach from Tesla's point of view because they're so smart. They sell you a car for cheap, a 3 Series, but it's already got all the sensors and cameras around it. And it's been taking this information and trying to improve its algorithms. Until one day they just flip a switch like over the weekend and they release another version of beta, version 9, and oh my God, your car can drive itself.
That's incredible.
It's incredible, right? And this is what I love about Tesla and this type of sort of, different, non-traditional thinking companies, right? Just like Apple, right? We get iOS updates, for iPhone, right? And all of a sudden you have brand new features. Right. For example, I already updated iOS 15 beta version, of course, because I love newer things, and I can basically take a photo of any of this Chinese, any text, and I can highlight it and copy it or translate it immediately. I no longer have to go into another app, and everything's just built in, so it saves me time. So this is what I'm saying, right? Everything software is so exciting these days, right? Is that you can continuously update and give new features to your existing hardware.
What China 2060 zero carbon mean for digital twin market?
Yeah, carbon neutrality, huge topic, huge. Very, very good question. So that's actually huge, not just China. So there's I think over 130 countries that signed into this carbon neutral by an X date. I think the vast majority will be carbon neutral or carbon zero by 2050. However, China did 2060, which makes complete sense since China is still the manufacturing capital of the world, right? There's still a lot that needs to be done, but still, it's incredible that China signed 2060, which is actually like
already ambitious.
Yeah, super ambitious, right? So I think that basically what that means is that every single business, every single building, every single sort of carbon emitting anything needs to be carbon neutral by that date. And that's incredible. That means every business needs to start thinking about it now. How do they apply newer technologies? How to be more sort of, understand how to reduce their carbon footprint all the way to neutral by then. And that also means digital twins is the first step to go, right? Because let's say you're traditional, industry, right? Let's say it's an assembly line, but they don't have anything sensors really. It's a very traditional assembly line. They don't have sensors. They don't know what's going on. They don't know how much carbon emission they're putting out. Then how can you fix something you don't know about? So having a digital twin is a first step. It's sort of a map, right? An understanding of the current status. And then you start sort of optimizing it, right? And you start optimizing from whether it's a software standpoint. For example, we can use machine learning algorithms to optimize digital twins these days, right? So if, let's say, there's connections between data where this sensor and that sensor is causing, more carbon, then maybe the AI can optimize it, and then it'll actually almost automatically reduce carbon footprint. But then you apply it en masse, right? Then you just sort of spread it out and you scale it. And then this is where all the digitalization, all of the smart technologies finally come into play that affects directly the carbon neutral mandate of the world.
Tell me more about your company, DIGITWIN Technologies.
Sure.
How big is it? Who are your clients?
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah, DIGITWIN. So we are up to actually slightly below 100 staff now.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Because we keep hiring, I just checked this morning, it was like 90, 98 or something. So it's funny because I want to be able to say, hey, we're over 100, right? Because that's easier to rolls off the tongue. But we're slightly under 100, but next week we should be over 100. obviously DigiTwin, right? Digital twins. We do digital twins, but at the same time, that is the base layer of what we do, right? Just like I'm saying, every building needs a sort of a base layer, a 3D base map, which is a digital twin, right? As well as all the sensors connected. But what we're actually doing is actually spatial computing. And what that means is basically understanding the link, right, as well as the spatial understanding of where these sensors are located, right? So, for example, in this car, AC is not 2D, right? No sensor in the physical world is two-dimensional. Even when we look at pollution levels, on our apps, right? It's all 2D, but if you go upstairs, it's completely different. So this is where spatial computing and 3D technologies is going to revolutionize the future of many, many industries, if not all industries. So spatial computing is the first step, right? But then you think about sort of in the future where that leads, right? So let's say you have a digital twin of this building, of let's say this area. I'm not sure what district. Let's just say it's Yangpu district because that's where my office is. And let's say we already have a digital twin of that, right? If you're able to see the data that is flowing between all of these sensors or the specific information that us as human beings need to react to, that's most important, that is what sort of digital twins is setting everything up for, right? Because if you don't have a digital twin of, let's say, of the city, right, with a map, but a map is static. You just look at it, and right now you're navigating, but it's static, right? In terms of like, how do I know, let's say, where all of the other sensors and autonomous cars are, and how would that affect my route, right? Sure, right now you're only looking at sort of the mobility layer, but there's so many other digital twin layers that all need to work together to form a smarter network.
What are the differences between West and China when it comes to digital twin? What are the challenges?
Well, I think similar to what I discussed earlier, everything here, right, this is one of the reasons why I moved back, is government and businesses are so open to new technologies to see how to improve things, how to be more efficient longer term. I just don't see that happening in the West, right? Because everything's more established. So there's not a lot of risk, right? They don't want to have new risks applied to their current status, right? Because then GDP will drop. Who knows, right? So one of the key things about other than me moving here and applying new technologies and then finding really a good stride and cadence to apply to different industries, it's really exciting because as soon as we deploy these technologies to our customers, their eyes get big and they're like, oh my God, can we do this and this and this and this? And it's like, yes, right? And then we start looping in other partners, whether it's hardware, whether it's AR, VR, etc., because our platform actually supports all of this type of data and as well as experiences and different hardware platforms.
Exciting times. And the final one, can you take us to the future, let's say 2050, how it would be looking like?
Sure. Well, first, hopefully by then pollution will be much better since the whole carbon neutral movement, which is great, I think, right, for human beings and health. Second of all, I think by then, so this is the thing that I think about constantly, what would a day look like 30 years from now? And basically, I see that this is another reason why we do spatial computing, is because right now, right, we're looking at sort of 2D devices, our phones, our computers, laptops, they're all 2D, right? The next generation of mobile devices, the next revolution in computing is actually spatial computing. And what does that mean? You're wearing glasses, right? And let's say next year or very, very soon, Apple comes out with their AR glasses, and let's say they release it for the masses, right? They might have a version that's more expensive, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 US dollars for content creators, but then they're going to have maybe a cheaper Apple standards, 500 US for regular folks that already have an iPhone. and all of a sudden you will be able to see a whole new world. As you're driving, you no longer need to look down at your navigation because everything's overlaid, right? At the same time, a digital twin, let's say you look over here, right? There's a McDonald's. All of a sudden, they're saying, oh, here's a Big Mac for, whatever, right? And then basically you see a whole new world, right? And it'll open up so many new possibilities. So what I foresee is that what we're doing, we're laying the groundwork and foundation to support these experiences, right? We talk about metaverse, which is actually, some say it's the next version of the internet, and everything needs to be spatial as well. So what our technology and our platform is called Twinverse, which enables businesses and governments to have their next generation metaverse. And basically, you can imagine where I can wake up in the morning, right? Put on, in 30 years, I think it would be probably AR contact lenses, to be honest, because there are companies working on now in MIT where you put it on and all of a sudden you see your own Twinverse, right? You want to see the weather, right? And you see this shining sun coming through, right? It's all 3D. And you see a UI where all of the top story headlines that you want to see, right? Your significant other sees a whole different Twinverse, right? That she wants to create because it's all user generated. And you can share these experiences with each other, right? Let's say I come over to your place, you can share like the sports or whatever that you want me to see. And as soon as you walk outside, let's say it's Huangpu district, the government gave you sort of a information. They know that you're a Westerner, so it's English or French or something, and they know it's a citizen of China, and it's a completely different Twinverse, right? But it's about information. It's already out there. It's just how it's portrayed and experienced. And I see the future where basically we experience the whole new world, the physical world in a whole new light, and not just one different layer, unlimited amounts of layers, right? So this is where I see the future, and I'm super, super excited about it.
I'm super excited too. I'm looking forward to see that, and I think it's coming faster than
Yes.
2050.
Yes.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. I wish best of luck to your company.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving this introduction to the digital twin market. It's super interesting, super exciting. That was the episode with Eric Leo, co-founder and CTO of DIGITWIN Technologies. In China Between Meetings, please subscribe, like, and follow, and see you next time.